Today we're going to have a little discussion about the Kia Stinger audio systems. There's two versions of the audio system. You've got the Lexicon Harman Kardon, and then you've got the bass. The Harman Kardon was obviously made in partnership between Kia and Harman Kardon to make a sound system that people somewhat recognize brand-wise, something with good quality, that way they can outsource. Well, today, this amplifier here is the bass one. This is a GT. I kept it simple. I wanted the engine that I modified to my likings. So this amplifier is usually mounted in and up here behind that panel and up above the fuse compartment. Today I'm just going to discuss what I'm doing and what I'm adjusting, and then in the future I'll show what I modified and my recommendations on how to do it yourself if you decide to. As you can see, there's another amplifier there, the one with the 4 blue lights on it. The stock amplifier, and many people have complained about this, I used to do audio quite hardcore. I used to doing competition crap, stuff like that, but I got old because you ruin your vehicles doing it. So I dove into this. I opened up the amplifier, looked inside. There's 2 chipsets inside, 4 channels apiece. It's all very well organized, great filtering and stuff. However, it is all digitally controlled when it comes to low pass filter, high pass filter, slopes for passive gains and everything else. Basically what that means is Kia set it up very specifically, not because of, let's say, holding back, but, you know, with good reason, within reason. However, these subs are what is most lacking. I don't think the Bass 2.0, or the GT line as they call it now, has subs underneath the driver's seats. However, this GT does, and I believe most Bass GTs do. And a lot of people complain that they cannot hear them making any noise. Now the reason for this is the 2 sub channels that are on this amplifier, they have a very mild slope, so they're only working in a certain area of frequency. So very specific music is needed in order to hear them work, or feel them work for that matter. Generally, and I did the math on it and put it up on Facebook, it's between 25 hertz and 35 hertz is where their most aggressive is. Everything else, it slopes off real hard, so you can't really hear them doing anything. And today we're going to adjust that a little bit with, again, this amplifier over here. Inside of these, being that it's all digitally controlled, you can't mess with anything. They don't use a old school low pass filter setup with capacitors and chokes. They program it to whatever they want. So in this manner, when you're giving it audio, there's only specific regions where you actually get good functionality out of the subs. And in day-to-day music that you hear on the radio, you're not going to really use that. They don't play a whole lot of slowed music or low bass music or anything like that on the radio, so you never really hear the subs actually. So what we did was I pulled the amp out and I bypassed. You can see, I'll zoom in on it a little bit, you're on a tripod so you don't get seasick. There's a couple wires right here. Now this is all temporary, we're still in the testing phase, so it is what it is. This is my method. There's a couple wires here. I took both of the stock subs, they were 2 ohms apiece, and I wired them in series, so we're at 4 ohms. From what I can tell, the conservative power rating, they're 1.5 inch copper coils, 2-layer. They're not going to handle much more than, say, 75 to 80 watts, frequency dependent. There's a lot of dependencies, but 75 to 80 watts should be no problem. However, the stock radio is feeding them about 35 watts. So when you buy the Harman Kardon system, it is a bigger amplifier than the one you see here. It is bigger, but the subs that are underneath the seat are the exact same subs. They have a different sticker on them in a couple locations. They're the exact same sub. So power handling is the same. You could say these ones are getting less power than what they could take, which is why, again, we're putting a different amplifier in. So what I did was I bypassed the sub signal, and I put it through that amplifier. I picked that amplifier because it is very, very small. It is very, very budget friendly, and it does rated power in that tiny compact package. It's not very big. It's only, I guess that doesn't help you too much. Let's take a look. My hand's not super small. I'll use a can instead. As you can see, it's not very big. It's very small, easy to hide down here unless of course yours looks like mine, then it may be a little harder to find a spot. But basically, with the setup, this amplifier is now powering the subs dedicated. So I went ahead and I did some preliminary testing to set the voltages and everything else. There's a gain on an amplifier, which is what your input signal is so that you get the right scaling when it comes out. I set that all up, and the new sound is phenomenal. So we set up the gain on this amplifier to have what I'm guessing, very educated guess that is, the proper output that I need for the rated amount the subs will probably take without any issues. So I went ahead and I set that, and then I set the volume up front and got everything else tuned in, and needless to say, the results are quite astounding. The subs are very active now. You can hear them very in tune with the car speakers. They run along with it. You can hear them at all of the volume levels, not just certain ones and certain songs. Because with this other amplifier, we can also adjust what tones go through the subs. Before, it was filtering out most of them. The reason for that is these subs that are under here, these subs in here, not that I can get it because I have my light off on it, but the subs that are underneath here are actually using the channel in here. It's right behind there underneath this panel as part of the box. There's a section from about here to here that actually it uses as a sealed enclosure because there's not a lot of room underneath the seat, so it actually utilizes that as a box. So in doing so, a sealed box is going to have a bit of a narrow band of things that it's going to prefer to do. But now that I've got it set up, it sounds really good with this. And I'll release more details about it once I get around to it. But with this, if you go in, we're going to have set tones. My numbers are going to have to be referenced over to your numbers so that you get a similar one. If you don't have tuning experience with audio, if you don't have multimeters and stuff like that, it's going to be very spitball, and there's going to be some risk factor to it. If you overdrive the subs too long, you could damage them. Most of them pop up on eBay for $100, so it's not a huge deal, but so just for example, I tuned it with the bass on 7. That's pretty good. That allows the door speakers to still have some action without being too much. Another thing is I tuned it at 40. 40 is a pretty good volume. I never, as a rule of thumb, again from audio experience, I never go to the max. The max is almost never a clean signal. It might sound clean, but it's usually not. On these radios, it likely is because of the way that it's dialed back. But I set it at 40 for maximum. You could still use 42, 43 because, again, I set it conservative. And then back here, we'll go back and look at the amp for a second. The amp itself, I've got the gains and the low pass filter set. The low pass filter is set so that we don't get too many vocals. This is a bass amp dedicated, so it'll only go up to 220 hertz anyways, so you're not going to really get any voices in it, but we don't want voices. If you get too many voices mixed with too much bass, the sub basically gets confused as to what it should be better at, and that causes a lot of distortion, and then you end up blowing the sub up. But that right there gives the gist of what I'm working on, and so far I really do like the results.